There's a certain type of person who just doesn't raise their voice even when it feels like the world's crumbling around them. They aren't ones to argue or start a fight. They don't panic and freak out. They don't feel the need to rush and prove that they're right about everything. They just take a breath and keep breathing. And while everybody else is losing their minds trying to figure out what's going on in the middle of all the chaos, they just quietly observe and watch. It's like they've already been through this exact same storm before and know what to expect. You've probably met someone like that in your life at some point. That kind of person who seems to be surrounded by silence itself, like it's a protective blanket. No matter what's happening, they stay calm, collected, steady, and grounded. They're untouchable in a way that's hard to explain. And if you've ever wondered how some people can stay so incredibly calm while everyone else is completely falling apart, the answer is a lot deeper than you might originally think. Real calmness, true calmness, isn't just the absence of feeling any emotions. It's what happens when emotion meets understanding and they come together. It's not that these people don't feel things. They absolutely do. They just don't react to those feelings in the same way that they used to. Once you've seen enough, once you've felt enough hurt, once you've finally realized that panicking doesn't actually solve anything, you eventually stop fighting against the storms that simply can't be controlled or stopped. You learn to just stand still and be okay with standing still in the rain instead. That's the psychology of calm people in a nutshell. They weren't born this way. They became this way over time. See, people who are always calm usually went through phases in their lives where they weren't calm at all. They were overthinkers who worried about everything. They cared way too much about things. They tried to control everything, fix everything, and please everyone around them. And every single time they tried to do all of those things, they learned the exact same lesson over and over again. That life doesn't bend to your will no matter how hard you push and try to force it to. At some point, they stopped trying so hard to control the ocean. And instead, they learn to surf it and go with the flow. That's really what calm is all about. It's not indifference, but it's emotional wisdom that comes with time and experience. Psychologists often describe this as emotional regulation, but that term doesn't quite capture the real soul of it. It's not just about suppressing your emotions or pretending that everything's perfectly fine when it's not. It's about understanding your emotions so deeply that they no longer have complete control over you and your actions. Calm people aren't emotionless robots. They're emotionally fluent and well-versed. They've learned the language of their own mind. They can feel anger without exploding, sadness without drowning, and uncertainty without losing their balance. Because inside their mind, there's a small voice that constantly whispers, "This too shall pass." And that voice isn't just blind optimism or wishful thinking. It's memory. They've lived through enough tough times to know that even the worst moments eventually fade away, that panicking doesn't speed up the healing process, and that peace isn't found in trying to control everything, but in learning to accept things as they are. Most people completely misunderstand calm people. They think calm means cold or uncaring, but in truth it often means compassionate and understanding. Calm people are the ones who hold space for others when everyone else is panicking and losing their cool. They're the ones who can genuinely say it's okay and really mean it, not because they don't care about what's going on, but because they know that chaos isn't permanent and won't last forever. There's a kind of quiet, unshakable strength in that. It's the strength of restraint, of knowing that not every single battle deserves your energy and attention, not every insult deserves a reply, and not every storm deserves your fear. It's the strength of consciously choosing peace even when your instincts are screaming at you to fight. But let's go even deeper than that. Why do some people reach this state of calm and peace while others constantly find themselves overwhelmed and stressed out? The answer lies in a part of the brain called the amygdala, which is the center of fear and emotional response. In people who've practiced mindfulness or who've been through emotionally intense and challenging experiences, the amygdala becomes more balanced and regulated. It still signals danger when it needs to, but it no longer completely hijacks their entire system. Their prefrontal cortex, which is the rational thinking part of the brain, learns to step in and take over before the emotion gets out of control. In other words, calm people have consciously trained their minds to pause for a moment between feeling something and reacting to it. That pause is their superpower and their key to success. It's why in an argument, they can hear something incredibly hurtful and not immediately strike back or say something they'll regret later. It's why they can sit in uncertainty without desperately needing to fill the silence. It's why when the world is loud and chaotic, they can still hear themselves think clearly. That pause, that moment of stillness, is where real wisdom resides. But here's what's really fascinating. Calm people often weren't taught to be this way through reading self-help books or going to therapy sessions. Many of them learned it the hard way, through the school of hard knocks, through heartbreak, through disappointment, through realizing that reacting quickly and emotionally often made things a whole lot worse in the long run. At some point, they just got completely tired of their own chaos and drama. They got tired of overreacting, regretting things, constantly apologizing and endlessly explaining themselves. They reached a point where inner peace became far more important than always being right or having the last word. So now, when tension rises and things start to escalate, they choose silence over shouting. They choose to breathe deeply instead of placing blame. They choose to let go of things instead of holding on to grudges that burn them up from the inside out. And yet, that calmness isn't always easy or effortless, because sometimes calm people carry storms inside that no one else can see. They look peaceful and serene on the outside, but their calm is hard-earned and well-deserved. It's the kind of calm that's forged in pain and perseverance, not perfection. They've cried in private, questioned their own worth, felt unseen and misunderstood, and through all of that, they eventually discovered that inner peace isn't a reward for having an easy life. It's a discipline that you build when you finally realize that emotional chaos just doesn't serve you anymore. That's why people who are always calm tend to think and process things differently. They're not driven by impulsive urges. They're guided by a broader perspective. They don't chase external validation from others. They chase inner meaning and purpose. They don't feel the constant need to prove that they're right about everything. They'd much rather understand different perspectives because deep down, they've realized something that most people haven't. Reacting to every single thing makes you a prisoner of everything. The calmer you are, the freer you ultimately become. In psychology, there's something called response flexibility. It's basically the ability to consciously choose your response instead of letting your emotions choose it for you. That's what calm people master over time. They don't suppress their emotions and pretend they're not there. They channel them and allow them to flow through them without letting them completely destroy them. That's why they're often the ones who seem so composed and put together during a crisis, but then break down quietly afterward when they're alone. Not because they're putting on a fake act for everyone, but because they truly understand the importance of timing. They know that there's a time to feel and a time to act, a time to process and a time to release. Their calmness isn't a mask they wear to hide their true feelings. It's an internal compass that keeps them aligned and on course, no matter how strong the winds of life get. And if you look a little closer, you'll notice something else. Calm people don't just react differently to things, they see things differently too. While most people only see chaos and confusion, they see patterns and connections. While most people only see problems, they see valuable lessons to be learned. While most people only see endings, they see new beginnings disguised as change. They've intentionally trained their perception to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, instead of getting completely lost in the heat of the moment. That's what gives them their sense of balance and equilibrium. That's why they can lose something important and still genuinely say, maybe this was meant to happen. It's not denial or wishful thinking. It's a perspective that's born from experience and wisdom. The calm person you see sitting quietly in the corner has probably lived through things that once broke them into a million pieces. They just learned not to live inside that brokenness anymore. They've finally realized that when you stop trying so desperately to control the uncontrollable, you create space for other things. And that space is where inner peace truly begins. Think about that the next time you see someone who never seems rattled or stressed out. They're not detached from life or disconnected from their emotions. They're just anchored deeper in it. They've stopped being tossed around by every single wave of emotion because they've become the ocean itself. Their calmness isn't apathy or indifference. It's understanding. It's the understanding that not every single emotion deserves to be expressed outwardly. Not every fleeting thought deserves your undivided attention, and not every situation deserves your precious energy, because energy is sacred to them. They spend their energy wisely on things that build them up, not break them down. They've seen firsthand how easily chaos can drain a person's spirit, how quickly drama can destroy inner peace, and how small reactions can grow into big regrets. So they choose differently now. When someone insults them, they pause and think about it. When someone misunderstands them, they'll explain themselves if it's worth it, but they'll simply walk away if it's not. When life gets heavy and overwhelming, they don't completely collapse under the pressure. They lean on faith, on time, and on perspective to get them through it. And that's what makes calm people so magnetic and appealing to others. It's not that they have all the answers to life's biggest questions. It's that they don't need to anymore. They've made peace with uncertainty and the unknown. And in a world that's completely obsessed with control, that inner peace is real power. Because while most people are fighting battles in their minds, replaying past events, overthinking every little detail, and regretting past decisions, calm people know that silence can often say more than words ever could, that not every single emotion deserves a witness, and that sometimes the greatest strength you can have is simply not reacting at all. But there's another layer to this psychology that few people ever talk about. Calmness can also be a subtle form of self-protection. It's a defense mechanism, yes, but it's a gentle one. For many people, calmness isn't something they consciously chose. It's something they had to build over time in order to survive difficult situations. They learned early on in life that reacting loudly and emotionally didn't actually change the outcome of things. That staying composed was safer for them, that keeping their emotions guarded kept them from being misunderstood or hurt by others. So calmness became their armor and their protection. Their quiet demeanor became their shield against the world. But here's the beautiful part of it all. Even if it started out as a form of self-protection, it eventually evolved into real power. Because over time, that initial restraint turned into self-awareness. That emotional distance turned into emotional depth. And that quiet strength became the unwavering foundation of their inner peace. That's why calm people are often the most self-aware individuals you'll ever meet. They deeply understand their own emotional triggers. They recognize their own recurring patterns. They don't need constant noise and stimulation to feel alive. They find comfort in stillness and quiet reflection, because stillness isn't emptiness, it's clarity. It's the sound of someone who's finally stopped running away from themselves and has chosen to face their inner demons. The calm ones often make the world feel a little slower, a little safer, and a little more peaceful just by being in it. They don't walk into a room and demand everyone's attention. They don't raise their own energy to match the noise and chaos around them. Instead, they lower the noise by simply being themselves and radiating their calm energy. You can almost physically feel it, that quiet confidence that doesn't need to be constantly proven or validated. There's something incredibly magnetic about people who stay calm and grounded in a world that's so addicted to overreacting. It's not because they're emotionless and don't feel things. It's because their emotions have matured over time and with experience. And maturity isn't just about age. It's about understanding what truly deserves your inner peace and what doesn't. Calm people often know that arguing and fighting rarely change anyone's mind. That rushing and hurrying rarely speed anything up. That worrying and stressing rarely prevent bad things from happening. So, they consciously let go of the things that don't serve them in a positive way, not because they don't care about anything, but because they've finally learned the true cost of caring about everything all the time. The calm person has probably already lived through the very thing that you're currently panicking about. They've already faced the heartbreak, the loss, the rejection, and the fear that you're now dealing with. They've personally seen that life continues to move on, even after those moments that once felt completely unbearable and impossible to get through. And that realization becomes their inner peace and strength. It's not that they expect life to be easy all the time. They've just stopped expecting it to be fair. And that shift in perspective alone removes half of life's inherent chaos and drama. When something bad inevitably happens, most people spiral into a cycle of why me? But the calm person thinks, why not me? Not out of a sense of defeat or resignation, but out of the deep understanding that bad things happen to everyone at some point in their lives. And resisting that truth only multiplies the suffering and makes it even worse. They've discovered a profound truth that's hidden deep within human psychology. That pain without resistance is just sensation, but pain with resistance ultimately becomes suffering. So they've stopped resisting what is and have learned to accept it. They've accepted the natural flow of life, not as passive observers, but as active participants who know when to move and when to wait patiently. Because calmness isn't passivity or inaction. It's control in its highest and purest form. It's the control of self. They've learned to separate the external world from their internal one. The world can be loud, unpredictable, and even cruel at times, but their inner space is sacred and protected. They don't allow every external event to dictate their internal state of being. That's why calm people often feel like they live in a different dimension than everyone else, because, in a way, they actually do. It's the space between stimulus and response that defines them. That tiny, almost invisible pause where they consciously decide whether to feed the chaos or cultivate inner peace. That pause is the true mark of emotional intelligence, because the truth is that calmness isn't something you simply find one day. It's something you intentionally create. Every calm person you meet is actively building it moment by moment, day by day. They've built it in the long, sleepless nights when their mind just wouldn't stop racing, in the difficult mornings when they felt like giving up on everything, in the challenging conversations where they chose silence over impulsive reaction. It's not easy to do, but it's always intentional. They've intentionally trained themselves to be unshaken and unbothered, not because life has stopped testing them, but because they've stopped failing the same emotional tests over and over again. If you ask a calm person what changed them and their perspective, they'll probably tell you something like, "I just got tired of it all, tired of overthinking everything, tired of constantly defending myself, tired of being misunderstood all the time, tired of giving my precious energy to things that just didn't deserve it." So they consciously started valuing inner peace like oxygen, something they absolutely needed to survive and thrive. It's a strange thing, really. The world often celebrates loud, flashy success, but it rarely truly honors quiet strength and resilience. Yet it's the calm ones who carry the most wisdom and insight within them. They're the ones who can sit in stillness and silence long enough to actually hear what life is trying to tell them. They notice far more than they speak. They see right through all the noise and distractions because silence sharpens their perception. In that silence, they observe without judgment or bias, and that's what allows them to understand other people so deeply and compassionately. If you really think about it, calm people are like emotional translators. They don't just hear the words you're saying, they also hear the hidden intention behind them. They don't just see your outward behavior, they also see the underlying wounds that are causing it. They don't just react to your outward energy, they absorb it, decode it, and release it in a healthy way. That's why talking to them often feels like going to a therapy session. You feel truly seen and understood, not analyzed or judged, because they're not just listening to formulate their response. They're listening to truly understand you and your perspective. That kind of deep listening requires stillness and focus. And stillness requires real strength, because it's hard to stay centered and grounded when everyone around you is spinning out of control. It's hard to remain soft and empathetic when the world keeps trying to harden you. But calm people do it anyway. Not because it's easy for them, but because they know it's absolutely necessary. They've realized that inner peace isn't the absence of problems in life. It's the ability to face those problems without completely losing yourself in the process. And that's what truly sets them apart from the crowd. Most people desperately look for peace in perfect conditions and circumstances. Calm people create inner peace within imperfect ones. They don't just sit around and wait for the storm to pass. They learn to find stillness and serenity right in the middle of it. You'll often find them following simple routines because simplicity stabilizes the mind and emotions. A consistent morning ritual, a quiet walk in nature, a warm cup of tea, or a few minutes of silent meditation before bed. These seemingly small habits aren't just random. They're anchors that keep them grounded and centered. Psychologically speaking, repetition builds a sense of control and predictability in life. And calm people consciously protect that pattern because it keeps them emotionally regulated. They know that without small doses of stillness and quiet reflection, the mind starts to spin stories and create chaos. And the calmer the mind is, the clearer those stories become. There's also something beautifully paradoxical about calm people. They tend to be some of the most deeply emotional souls you'll ever meet. Yet, they're also the least reactive, because they've learned that expressing emotion doesn't always require a dramatic eruption or outburst. Sometimes you express emotion simply by holding it gently until it dissolves on its own. And this doesn't mean that they don't feel intense emotions. They just express them in a different way than most people do. Their sadness often turns into quiet reflection. Their anger often turns into newfound clarity. Their fear often turns into unwavering faith. That inner alchemy, the ability to consciously transform negative emotions into self-awareness, is really the core of calmness. It's what separates true emotional maturity from emotional chaos and turmoil. But here's something even deeper to consider. Calmness doesn't just change how you feel on the inside, it also changes how other people treat you on the outside. When you stay calm and collected, you become harder to manipulate by others. You become unpredictable to those who rely on emotional reactions to control you. And that, in turn, protects your precious energy, because nothing confuses chaos more than someone who simply refuses to join in on it. It's a quiet act of rebellion. When everyone else is desperately racing to respond and react, the calm person waits patiently. And in that moment of waiting, they gain a perspective that others completely miss. They see hidden motives, recurring patterns, and subtle dynamics that only reveal themselves in stillness and silence. They don't rush to judgment or jump to conclusions, because they've learned that the truth always unfolds and reveals itself in due time. It doesn't need to be forced or rushed. That's why calm people rarely ever regret their decisions. They give life enough time to show them what's truly real and what's not. And maybe that's the most profound part of it all. Calm people don't just manage their emotions better, they respect time itself. They understand that time reveals what intense emotion often hides. That patience is not just inaction, it's wisdom disguised as a temporary delay. So while others are frantically chasing quick closure and instant gratification, calm people allow things to simply breathe and unfold naturally. Because they know that rushing to understanding is the fastest way to misunderstand something. If you ask them how they manage to stay so calm and grounded, they'll probably just smile and say something simple like, "I just stopped fighting everything all the time." But what they really mean is that they stopped fighting against life itself. They stopped trying to win every single argument, control every single outcome, rewrite every mistake from the past, and predict every event in the future. They started trusting themselves enough to simply let things unfold as they're meant to. Trust is really the secret ingredient in calmness. It's not about knowing exactly what's going to happen next in your life. It's about deeply believing that whatever happens, you'll be able to handle it and get through it. And that unwavering belief doesn't come from arrogance or ego. It comes from hard-earned experience, from surviving enough difficult storms in your life to know without a shadow of a doubt that you'll survive the next one too. That's why calm people often radiate a quiet confidence, not a loud, showy kind of confidence that needs to constantly be on display, but the kind that feels like gravity itself. It's not in their words or boasts, it's simply in their presence and energy. You just feel inherently safe and at ease around them, because their calm energy tells you that it's okay to just be yourself. We don't have to rush through life. We don't have to constantly fight and struggle. We can just simply be present in the moment. And maybe that's what the world really needs more of right now. People who don't add to the constant noise and chaos. People who can pause for a moment before reacting impulsively, breathe deeply before speaking rashly, and listen attentively before judging harshly. Just imagine if everyone consciously learned to do that for just one day. The world would instantly sound a whole lot quieter and more peaceful. And maybe, just maybe, that silence would heal more wounds than words ever could. But let's be real here. Staying calm and grounded isn't always easy. Even the calmest people lose their balance sometimes. Sometimes they get angry, they break down emotionally, and they feel crippling self-doubt. But the key difference is that they know how to consciously return to that state of inner stillness and peace. They don't stay completely lost in their negative emotions. They observe them objectively, understand their underlying causes, and then consciously let them pass through them. That's the cycle: awareness, acceptance, and release. Because true calmness isn't about never being shaken or challenged in life. It's about always consciously finding your way back to your center. The calm ones know that emotions are like waves in the ocean. not permanent walls blocking your path. You can't realistically stop them from coming, but you can always consciously choose how to surf them. So they ride the natural rise and fall of life with grace and resilience, never letting one single wave define the entire ocean. They've learned that both happiness and pain are just temporary visitors in their lives, both equally welcome and both equally fleeting. And in that deep acceptance, they find an inner peace that doesn't depend on whatever happens next in their lives. That's why calm people often feel timeless and ageless, as if they've consciously stepped outside of the constant race that everyone else is running. Because in a way, they actually have. They're not desperately chasing inner peace anymore. They've become it, embodying it in every aspect of their lives. And maybe you felt that inner pull toward calmness too. That quiet voice inside your heart that whispers, "I just want inner peace." Maybe you finally reached a point in your life where constant chaos and drama no longer excite you, where silence feels like a refuge of safety, and where you'd much rather understand others than argue with them. That's not weakness or apathy. That's genuine personal growth and maturity. Because calmness isn't something you're just born with. It's something you intentionally grow into over time. And once you do, the world around you starts to change its colors and hues. You stop needing constant noise and stimulation to feel truly alive. You start consciously valuing quiet moments of reflection, gentle and kind people, and slower-paced days. You begin to measure success not by how much you outwardly achieve, but by how peacefully you consciously live. And the best part of it all is that the calmer you become on the inside, the more clearly you start to see on the outside. You start to clearly see other people's intentions, recurring patterns, and your own inner purpose. You start noticing how much of life is just noise and distractions, pretending to be vitally important. And once you truly see that, it's hard to ever unsee it. So you consciously begin simplifying your life. You declutter your thoughts, your physical space, and your relationships. You consciously choose less, and somehow it ultimately feels like so much more. Because calm people know that the ultimate goal in life isn't to have a perfect life that's free of problems. It's to have a peaceful mind that's at rest. And inner peace doesn't come from desperately fixing everything outside of you. It comes from consciously learning to rest and be at peace within yourself, even when absolutely nothing outside of you makes sense. That's what ultimately makes calm people so rare and unique. Not their perceived lack of emotion, but their deep understanding of it. They don't run away from the storm, they become the still and peaceful center within it. They don't try to desperately control the wind. They consciously learn to move and flow with it. They don't fear the uncertainty of life. They see it as an integral part of the beautiful dance of life, and maybe that's really the core message that we all need to hear right now. That calmness isn't something you find at the end of your life's long journey. It's something you find when you consciously stop running from yourself and fully decide to be present in the here and now. Because life will always test you and challenge you in unexpected ways. It will inevitably shake you, challenge you, and break your natural rhythm. But every single time it does, you always have a clear choice to consciously react or to consciously return to your center. And every single time you consciously choose to return to that inner state of calm and peace, you become a little bit stronger, a little bit wiser, and a little bit freer than you were before. So, if you've ever been told that you're too calm, take it as a huge compliment. It simply means that you've mastered the delicate art of emotional balance in a world that thrives on constant reaction and overstimulation. It means that you've learned to clearly see the storm without ever becoming it. And it means that you've found the kind of quiet, unwavering strength that doesn't need to shout to be heard. It simply is. Because calmness is not emptiness or apathy. It's a fullness without the excessive noise. It's power without unnecessary aggression. It's emotion without all the unnecessary chaos.